All right, so get ready because today we're diving into something really, really fascinating. We're going to be exploring this area where modern medicine and homeopathy, they kind of seem to intersect.
Yeah,
And it just might change how you think about your own health.
it really might. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely eye-opening, especially when you think about all the information that modern medicine is putting out there, even if it's unintentional.
exactly.
Hmm.
You know, when I first saw this collection of papers that you sent me, I was blown away by how they all pointed to this idea of using modern drugs, but with this like homeopathic approach.
Hmm.
And we're not even talking about obscure medications. We're talking about common drugs, stuff that lots of people probably already have in their medicine cabinet.
Yeah, what's so interesting is that these papers, they really dig into this thing called the rebound effect.
Okay.
And it's a phenomenon that probably a lot of us have experienced without even realizing it.
So let's break this down, this rebound effect.
Okay.
It sounds kind of like a medical boomerang, I guess.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically how our bodies sometimes react in the opposite way to a drug's effects, but only after we stop taking it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like our body gets used to the drug doing its thing, and then when it's gone, everything just kind of goes haywire.
That's a great way to put it. It does seem kind of counterintuitive at first, but it really shows us this basic principle. Your body always wants to maintain balance.
Hmm.
Homeostasis, as it's called.
Okay.
I'll give you an example with blood pressure medications.
Okay.
Antihypertensives.
Hmm.
So if someone suddenly stops taking those, they can experience a temporary spike in their blood pressure, even higher than it was before they started the medication.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's called rebound hypertension.
So the medication that's meant to lower blood pressure, it can actually end up doing the opposite if it's not managed really carefully.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild.
And it's not only blood pressure medications, this rebound effect, it happens with other drugs too.
Hmm.
Like some drugs that are used to regulate heart rhythm,
Okay.
antiarrhythmic drugs.
Yeah.
If you stop taking them, you can actually trigger irregular heartbeats to come back.
Wow.
And even in asthma treatment, some people find that their breathing gets worse after they stop using certain long-acting bronchodilators.
So this rebound effect, like way more common than we might think.
It really is.
But what's the connection to homeopathy? I'm starting to see a little bit of link here, but
Well, to understand that, we got to bring in Samuel Hahnemann.
okay.
He's the founder of homeopathy,
Mhm.
and his main principle was similibus curentur,
Right.
which basically means like cures, like,
Okay, yeah, the idea of using something that causes the same symptoms to actually treat the illness.
right.
So are we saying that this rebound effect, where the body does the opposite of what the drug was doing,
Yeah.
is that kind of like a real-world example of Hahnemann's principle in action?
It's a fascinating parallel for sure.
Yeah.
Hahnemann, he saw that things that cause certain symptoms in healthy people could actually treat those same symptoms in sick people if they were given in really diluted forms.
Mm.
And when you look at the rebound effect with these modern drugs, it's almost like the body itself is showing us that same principle, the substance causing a symptom, and then potentially being used to treat that symptom.
That's pretty amazing.
Right.
So how does modern medicine fit into this?
Well, think about how they do drug trials.
Okay.
They record every single side effect, right? Even the super rare ones.
Yeah.
They do this through all the phases, from phase I all the way to phase 4.
Right, got to make sure it's safe and understand everything it does in the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is that by doing this, they're accidentally building this huge database of symptoms that are caused by these drugs in healthy people.
Wow.
It's like a giant encyclopedia that's constantly being updated on how all these different medications affect us.
So it's almost like we're accidentally doing these massive, super detailed homeopathic provings.
Yeah.
Without even trying to.
Exactly.
That's kind of remarkable.
It is, yeah.
Can you remind me what those are again?
Oh, yeah. Those provings are where you give a substance to a bunch of healthy people,
Okay.
and you just watch them and see what symptoms they get.
Mm-hmm.
It's a core principle of homeopathy, and all the data they get from this forms the basis of their materia medicas, which are basically like their big encyclopedias of remedies.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing the connection even more now.
Yeah.
It's like modern medicine is actually creating all this information that could be used for homeopathy.
Yeah.
Thanks to all those detailed records of the symptoms that the drugs are causing.
Right.
But what are researchers actually doing with all this data? Are they just collecting it, or are they actually trying to, apply it?
They're actually using it to build something called the Homeopathic Materia Medica of modern drugs,
Okay.
or HMMMD for short.
So they're basically taking this massive amount of info from, like, regular medicine
Yeah.
and turning it into something that homeopaths can understand and use.
Exactly.
But I gotta admit, I'm a little fuzzy on the details of a homeopathic materia medica.
Sure.
Can you, break that down for me a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Imagine a really detailed encyclopedia.
Okay.
But instead of like historical figures and stuff,
Yeah.
each entry is about a specific substance and what it does to the human body.
Okay.
They're organized by body systems, so you'd have a section on like the head, another one for the respiratory system, things like that.
So you'd find, specific symptoms listed there.
Yeah,
Headaches, nausea,
exactly.
skin rashes, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So they go into a lot of detail describing the types of symptoms each substance can cause.
Okay.
And the HMMMD is doing the same thing, but with modern drugs.
Right.
So, like, let's say you have an entry for ibuprofen.
Yeah.
It would list all the known side effects from clinical trials, like headaches, dizziness, stomach upset, skin reactions, all of it.
So it's like a big side effects cheat sheet, but way more detailed? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea is to see if those side effects, the things you don't want to happen,
Right.
could actually be used to treat things
Uh-huh.
based on that, cures-like principle.
Exactly. You got it.
It's like flipping the script on side effects.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's even cooler is that the HMMMD, it goes even further than just listing the symptoms.
Okay.
It also looks at how often those symptoms show up in the trials.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, like, if something pops up in 10% of people, that's going to stand out more than something that only happens to 1%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Like a ranking system.
Yeah, exactly.
Showing which symptoms are more likely to happen with each drug.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. But I'm curious, how does this play out in practice?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned some examples earlier.
Yeah.
Aspirin, antihistamines, azithromycin.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other interesting drugs from the HMM&D that you've come across?
One that I found really interesting is amlodipine.
Okay.
It's a calcium channel blocker, usually prescribed for high blood pressure and angina.
Okay, yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
common.
Yeah.
And one of its known side effects is this thing called peripheral edema,
Okay.
which is basically swelling in your hands, feet, or ankles.
No, not fun.
Not fun at all.
No.
But here's where it gets interesting. Amlodipine, in its homeopathic form,
Yeah.
is actually being studied as a potential treatment for certain types of edema.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
So the same drug that can cause swelling
Yeah,
could actually be used to reduce it.
exactly.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It really speaks to how complex the human body is
Yeah.
and how differently we can respond to things.
Mhm.
But it also shows just how much potential this approach has, this idea that we can find new ways to use drugs for healing.
So it's about looking beyond what the drug is normally used for
Right.
and seeing it through a different lens, a homeopathic lens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This HMMMD is starting to sound like a treasure trove of possibility.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And to give you another example, let's look at omeprazole.
Okay.
It's a proton pump inhibitor,
Yeah.
commonly used for acid reflux and heartburn.
Oh, yeah. I know people who swear by that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things about omeprazole is that it can sometimes cause headaches as a side effect.
Huh. I guess I never really thought about the side effects of heartburn medication,
Right.
but it makes sense that they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's where the HMMMD comes in.
Okay.
It suggests that omeprazole, in its homeopathic form,
Yeah.
could actually be a potential treatment for certain types of headaches.
So the drug that's helping some people with their heartburn
Yeah,
could also be used to help others with headaches.
exactly.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
It's like instead of seeing a side effect as a bad thing,
Yeah,
we're asking, could this actually be good for something?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole area of research so exciting.
It challenges how we think about medicine
Yeah.
and opens up all these new ways to use drugs for good.
Yeah. Okay, I'm totally hooked.
Great.
Do you have any other examples you want to share?
Yeah, let's talk about alprazolam.
Oh.
It's a benzodiazepine,
Mm-hmm.
often prescribed for anxiety and panic disorders.
Yeah, definitely heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a very well-known medication.
Yeah.
And one of the common side effects of alprazolam is drowsiness.
Right, that's why you're not supposed to drive or anything after taking it.
Exactly, for safety reasons.
Yeah.
But now let's look at this through the HMMD lens.
Okay.
It suggests that alprazolam, when used homeopathically, could actually help with certain sleep disorders.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
So the medication that makes people sleepy
Mm-hmm.
could help people who can't sleep.
Exactly.
That seems completely backwards.
It does, but that's the beauty of this approach.
Yeah.
It challenges our ideas about how medicines work and opens up all these possibilities.
Okay. I'm starting to think of this HMMMD less like a medical textbook
Yeah,
and more like a medical mystery novel
that's a good way to put it.
full of these twists and turns.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
But I imagine there must be some challenges and limitations to this whole thing.
No, absolutely. It can't all be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
There are definitely challenges that researchers are working through.
Okay.
We've already touched on the need for more research and more collaboration between conventional medicine and homeopathy. But there are other hurdles, too.
Okay.
One of the big ones is the whole dosage thing.
Right. Homeopathy using highly diluted substances.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's always been a big point of debate.
It has.
But how does that play into the HMMD?
Well, it brings up questions about how to figure out the right dose for a modern drug when you're using it homeopathically.
Right, because it's not as simple as just taking less of the regular drug, right?
Exactly.
Like if a typical dose is, say, 500 milligrams,
Yeah.
how do you translate that into a homeopathic dose?
That's where it gets tricky.
Okay.
There's no agreed upon way to do that. Homeopathic doses are based on a totally different system.
Right.
They often use serial dilutions and succussions,
Okay.
which is basically shaking the substance in a specific way.
Hmm.
It's thought to enhance the energetic properties of the substance.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely a puzzle that researchers are still trying to solve.
So figuring out the right dosage for these modern drugs in a homeopathic way is still a work in progress.
Definitely.
Are there any other big challenges facing this approach? I'm curious to hear more about the hurdles that researchers are coming up against.
Well, one of the biggest challenges comes from the very nature of homeopathy itself.
Okay.
The fact that they use these super diluted substances,
Right.
that's always been a point of contention, in conventional medicine.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of using something that's so diluted, it barely has any of the original molecules left.
Right.
It's tough to wrap your head around that,
It is.
especially if you're coming from a traditional science background.
Yeah, it raises some really fundamental questions about how those super diluted substances could actually have any effect on the body.
So how do the researchers who are working with this HMMMD,
Yeah.
how do they, deal with that skepticism
Right.
and try to bridge that gap between conventional medicine and homeopathy?
Well, it's a process.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of rigorous research
Yeah.
and open-mindedness from both sides.
Sure.
Some researchers are really diving deep, trying to understand how these highly diluted substances could work. Are there any mechanisms of action that we just haven't discovered yet?
Wow.
They're using some pretty advanced scientific tools and techniques to figure that out.
So they're really pushing the boundaries of what we know
They are.
and how we understand things.
Absolutely. It's a really exciting area of research.
Yeah.
There's also this growing emphasis on collaboration,
Okay.
bringing together people from different fields. So you have conventional medicine doctors, homeopaths, and other experts all working together.
So it's breaking down those walls
Yes.
and bringing in all those different perspectives.
It's all about creating this more integrated approach to research.
Yeah, that sounds really promising.
It is.
It's got to be the way forward.
Yeah, and another important thing is being transparent.
Okay.
Openly communicating about the challenges and the limitations of this approach.
Sure.
We can't say that the HMMMD has all the answers.
Right.
Or that it's going to replace conventional medicine.
Yeah.
It's about exploring these new possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And expanding our understanding of how things can affect the human body.
So approaching it with a sense of curiosity
Yes.
and humility,
Exactly.
knowing that there's still so much that we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Being open to new discoveries.
Absolutely.
It's about adding to our toolkit, not throwing away the tools we already have. And at the end of the day, it's all about helping people make informed decisions about their own health.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we had the chance to really dive into this today.
Me too.
It's definitely been thought-provoking, to say the least.
Yeah, it's always exciting to explore these areas where different approaches to health kind of overlap.
Yeah.
Who knows what we'll find as we keep digging into this stuff.
Well, to our listeners out there, keep those curious minds engaged.
Yes.
And stay tuned for our next deep dive.
We'll be back soon with more fascinating topics to explore.
Until then, happy learning.